Hi, everybody. Don't be freaked out. It's me, David Elliott. And yes, this is probably the best hat I have. I don't wear it all the time, or ever really, except on special occasions like this, chapter 24 of Evangeline Mud and the Golden Haired Apes of the Icky Nasty Jungle, written by me, David Elliott, and illustrated by Andrea Wesson. Why did I do that? Who knows? Maybe because I'm wearing this hat. This hat actually is from, look at it. It's so beautiful, really. It's from the African country of Mauritania. Right. Look at that. And this was a gift from my friend Amadou. Wouldn't you like to have a name like Amadou? I would. And it's great to kind of have friends, I think, who are different from you, who look different from you, who maybe were raised in a way that is not like the way you were raised, because it can teach you a lot about the world and a lot about yourself and other ways to think about things. Well, anyway, thank you, Amadou from Mauritania, for that hat. I have it usually hanging on the wall in my study. Okay, this is almost it. Chapter 24. Only one more left, guys. Chapter 24, Flying Rats. So, oh yes, what happened in the last one? If you'll remember, Evangeline saved the blue butterfly from the spitting spider web. And then it flew around her head, and Dadu said, "Oh, now you help the spider, spider helps you." But no one kind of knew what that meant. Maybe we'll find out now. Flying Rats, chapter 24. After hours of walking, the adventurers neared the spot where Rexy had been working his terrible scheme. Evangeline, the enormous blue butterfly still flitting about her, listened for the rumbling of the bulldozers, but try though she might, she was met with only silence. "Perhaps the goo-goo juice lasted longer than you thought, Dadu," she said hopefully. But Dadu said nothing. He seemed to be concentrating on something, looking first to the left and then to the right as he stepped deliberately along. Eventually, the party found its way into the clearing. Magdalena and Meriwether gasped at the horror of what they saw. Though Evangeline had done her best to describe the terrible wound that Rexy was inflicting upon the jungle, the reality of the destruction was hundreds of times worse than it had been in their imaginations. As for Rexy and his workers, they were nowhere to be seen. For Evangeline, the silence they left behind was the saddest thing she had ever heard. No birds, no monkeys, no insects, nothing. Nothing at all. "We'd better hurry," said Dr. Pickaflea. "He's probably gone back to Baba Bun to get new bulldozers. But if I know my brother, he'll be back soon. He won't be satisfied until the entire jungle is gone." No sooner had the 5 travelers reached the center of the clearing than a terrible yellow racket came bursting out on all sides of the jungle around them. Before they knew it, Dadu, Dr. Pickaflea, Magdalena, Meriwether, and Evangeline were surrounded by the bulldozers. Rexy himself was driving one of the big yellow machines. Evangeline saw that he was wearing a pair of sunglasses, the mirrored kind. All of the drivers were wearing sunglasses too, the exact same kind that Rexy had on. Evangeline also saw that in the bucket of each of the bulldozers there was a large metal box about the size of a medium-sized television set. There was no point in trying to escape. Just like the butterfly, they had fallen into a trap. When the bulldozers had surrounded them in a tight circle, Rexy signaled the drivers to turn off their machines. "Hello down there," he sang out nastily. He was speaking through a bullhorn, which Evangeline thought was ridiculous since they would have been able to hear him perfectly well without it. Dr. Aphrodite Pickaflea was the first to speak. "Rexy," she said, "what do you think you're doing?" "What's the problem?" Rexy snarled through the bullhorn. "The problem is you're tearing down the jungle," Evangeline shouted up at him, "to make toothpicks." "So what?" Rexy hissed. "The world wants toothpicks and I'm providing them. You should thank me for it." "No, I shouldn't," Evangeline asked angrily. "You're not thinking about the world. You're thinking about yourself and your money." "So sue me," sneered Rexy. "Do you know how many toothpicks I can make from these trees? Do you? Well, get out your calculator, girlie, because the answer is plenty. And I'm going to be a zillionaire, probably even a gadillionaire. I'll be the toothpick king of the world thanks to this jungle." "But what about all the animals who live here?" Evangeline cried. "What about the birds and the monkeys and the golden hairs?" They can rent apartments in Huehuetenango for all I care," said Rexy. "It's not my fault they decided to live here." "But this is their home," Evangeline shouted. "Not anymore, missy, not anymore." "You bads man," said Dadu. "You really most extremely terribles and bads." "I'm bad?" Rexy replied, standing up in the seat of the bulldozer and rubbing his bottom. "You should talk. At least I don't go around with an oversized bean shooter whooshing pointy things into people's behinds. By the way, I'd like to buy the recipe for that goo-goo stuff. Might come in handy someday." "You're mad, Rexy," said Merriweather. "Completely mad." "Sticks and stones," Rexy snapped. The way he curled his lip made him look like a weasel. "By the way, I thought the jungle would have gotten you by now." "Well," said Magdalena, "think again." "Well, think again," repeated Rexy, holding his nose and imitating Magdalena in a horrible voice. Hearing Rexy talk to her mother like that was almost more than Evangeline could bear. "I'll bet if I crawled up on that bulldozer and bopped you one on the nose, you'd cry like a baby," she said. "I wouldn't try it," Rexy sneered, but every single person there, including members of his own crew, saw him pull back, even though he was sitting high above Evangeline on the seat of the bulldozer. "Anyway," he continued, "it really doesn't make any difference." "What are you talking about?" Evangeline said. "What do you mean that it doesn't make any difference?" "What I mean," said Rexy, "is that I finally figured out that no matter what I try, Aphrodite will be in my way. That's why I started my toothpick business in the middle of the jungle. I figured by the time she found out about it, I'd be all the way to the edge, and by then it would be too late. But could she keep her big fat nose out of my business? No. She's not going to stop me now, though, and neither are you, Shorty. No one is." "And just what makes you so sure of that?" Aphrodite asked. "Oh, nothing really," Rexy replied. "Nothing at all, except for the little presents that I have here for you and your friends." Rexy pointed to the metal box that was in the bucket of his bulldozer. "What's in the box?" said Merriweather. "In there," Rexy tittered. "I'll give you a hint." Rexy stood up in the seat and began to wave his arms around horribly. Without any warning, he let loose with a big gob of spit. It was disgusting. "The spiders," said Evangeline. "The spitting spiders of Icky Nasty." "Oh, what a clever girl you are," said Rexy, sitting down and wiping his chin. "Too bad I despise clever children. It's also too bad you don't have a pair of these special nifty sunglasses. You see, the spiders can look right at me and not a thing will happen. They can spit all they want, and I'll still be able to see all the way from here to the gigantic swimming pool I'm going to build from all the toothpick money I'll make. But you, well, You don't have any of these glasses, do you? Shut your eyes, everybody, said Aphrodite pitifully. Shut your eyes before he opens the boxes. Shut them all you want, said Rexy. You won't be able to shut them forever. You'll have to open them sometime, and when you do, we'll be right here. While Rexy had been delivering his last speech, the blue butterfly stopped circling Evangeline and slowly made its way toward Rexy, where it began to flutter around the wicked man's weaselly face. Rexy batted at it again and again, but each time the butterfly darted away, only to return. Soon it was joined by another. Where are these disgusting bugs coming from? Rexy asked, waving his stubby hands in front of his face. Flying rats, that's what I call them. What a nuisance. The world will well be rid of them. But in the short time it had taken to utter these sentences, still more butterflies had arrived. And more, and more. In a matter of seconds, it was as if every butterfly in the jungle was flying around Rexy and the drivers. There were thousands of them, tens of thousands, huge butterflies, tiny butterflies, medium-sized butterflies, each one different from the next. Some were a shimmering blue, like the one Evangeline had rescued from the spider web. Others were lime green. Some were spotted. Some were striped. Their wings were pointed and scalloped and lacy and frilled. The air was a whir with the beating of their wings. Now, you and I both know that one butterfly isn't really scary, and 10 butterflies aren't really scary, but thousands, tens of thousands? Rexy was downright terrified. Not only that, he was so busy batting the air and flailing his arms that he couldn't get to the box. Dadu turned to Evangeline and beamed. You sees, he said, magics. You helps the butterfly, now the butterfly help you. Get away from me, Rexy was shouting. Get away, stop it, help, help. We'd better get going where the going is good, said Dr. Pickaflea. The 5 travelers took one last look at Rexy and his crew and hurried to the other side of the clearing. Just before they stepped back into the jungle, Evangeline looked back. The butterflies are gone, she cried out. It was true. The butterflies had almost completely disappeared, but Rexy and his men were now trying to fight off something even more powerful than thousands of butterflies. Look, Evangeline shouted. Look, look. It was the golden hares. They came bursting through the clearing, heading straight for Rexy and his men. Evangeline watched as the biggest one ran to Rexy and snatched him up in his arms. Put me down, you flea bag! Rexy shouted like a spoiled baby. Put me down! I've got trees to knock over, toothpicks to make. But the ape didn't put him down. In fact, now carrying Rexy as if he were football, the golden hare turned and ran back into the jungle. Just at the edge of the clearing, the ape grabbed a low-hanging vine, swung up into the treetops, and began to brachiate, carrying Rexy into the heart of the jungle. Oh, sorry. Help! They heard Rexy cry again. Help! I'm getting seasick! By now, the other golden hares had joined the one who was carrying Rexy, each of them carrying one of Bulldozer crew. In a matter of seconds, they had all disappeared behind the green curtain of the jungle. I don't think we'll be seeing Rexy again for a long time, said Merriweather. Goodbye and good riddance, Magdalena added. Evangeline, hoping to see if Pansy had joined the other golden hares on their escapade, continued to stare into the spot where the apes had swung into the jungle with Rexy and the others. She looked up just in time to see Dr. Aphrodite Pickaflea wipe a tear from the corner of her eye. He's rotten to the core, she sniffed quietly, but he is my brother. Evangeline took Dr. Pickaflea's hand. The woman's palms were as calloused and hard as a golden hare's from all those years of brachiating, but the backs were as soft as her own. Maybe Rexy and his men will like monkey tag, the girl said. Well, the butterflies and the golden hares saved them and saved the jungle. Kind of good, don't you think? There was another animal in that chapter. It was my dog, who was barking constantly while out on the porch. I'm sorry about that. Well, that's natural. That's what dogs do. Okay, guys. We're almost done. Tomorrow will be the very last day that we'll be together. Who knows? Will I have another hat? I couldn't top the one from Mauritania. Now, could I? Let me put it back on to say goodbye. In the meantime, look at that. I love all that. That's leather. Well, you know what I always say? Think good thoughts. Do something nice for somebody today. You know, why don't you get an atlas or go online and find where Mauritania is. Mauritania. And in the meantime, have a good rest of the day. Don't bark like a dog, like my dog is doing right now. Or if you want to, go ahead. Why not? And I will see you tomorrow for our last chapter. Bye.